Welcome everyone and morning to our USD working group update today. Let me quickly start with a introduction of our USD working group team. So we are Michael from Netflix, we have Corey from Pixar, and then we also have our two chairs, which are my co-chair Nick from Pixar, who is presenting today as well. And then there's me, the other co-chair from Apple, Alex. Together we organize and run our USD working group. We run those meetings and everything around them. So if you got any questions, feel free to ask any of us. And so we decided that we would start this presentation the same way we do most of our meetings, and that is to have a bit of a relaxed time in the beginning and create a nice atmosphere. And so many folks joined from other meetings, or they just had a break and talked about Moonray or other new cool ASWF projects and don't have what they had in USD. And so instead of jumping right into talking about USD and be productive, we give everyone a bit of a time to join and create this nice, good vibe, and start with something related to USD, but also fun. And so in many meetings, that is the USD cookie. So here's a picture from about 5 years ago that we baked at DNEG actually. And over the last half year, we 3D printed new cookie cutters for these USD cookies, and then baked USD cookies in our meetings. But then going back to actual 3D work, we then scanned the cookies with object capture and created USDZ files, and then uploaded them afterwards to GitHub for people to use in presentations and demos. We uploaded it to Sketchfab so people can see it there, and that's great. We also went full circle and 3D printed the USD file, and to get another USDZ USD cookie, you might see it here as well. It is live, it is there. And last week we also had a milestone in our USD working group Slack channel. And so as a celebration, we added a USD cookie emoji. So now that we've got that covered, let's actually see what we are going to talk about. And that is, we start with an overview of what the USD working group is and what our goals are. Then we let our sub-working groups introduce themselves and tell you about their great work they've been doing. And at the end, we quickly talk about how you can attend and join our efforts. And then we have a bit of time for Q&A. So yeah, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to post it on the Slack, not the Slack, on the Zoom chat. With that, I'll hand it over to Nick.
All right, thank you, Alex. And I'll just ask you to advance the slide at the, I'll wave my hand for you. So what is the working group? The working group is, I'll just read the line on the slide here, is the place for the USD community to come together for face-to-face real-time conversations around very topical and timely subjects that come up in like various forums, including like our Slacks and so on. And a little bit of history about the working group would be interesting, which is that it originally formed when we thought that there would be subjects of like common interest across the ASWF, and we thought that we should start having some regular meetings where we could get together and talk about what sorts of things we're running into and issues that we want to discuss, and maybe find like common points of agreement to communicate to the team at Pixar about things that the community would like to collectively bring forward. And the group grew organically over time and started with that sort of general mandate. And over time, we started getting some interesting contributions from the community, like people coming forward to say, hey, can we show our work? And they had some fine presentations, and little by little, it started snowballing and becoming quite an active venue. And an early example of that that's sort of led us to the structure that we've got today with the various working group subgroups was an effort that had been underway across various groups at ASWF on the topic of camera metadata. So there'd been a problem identified in places like Netflix that when you're on set with cameras, you're collecting all kinds of data. There's stuff coming off the lens, even like IMU data and the temperature of the sensor, and all that data is kind of like dropped on the floor and it doesn't make it into the pipeline. And by the time we get to the points in production and grading where you could actually use that information, and it's long gone. And so there were a number of experiments, like Eric Renicky on the Open Timeline IO team tried using Open Timeline IO to intern that data in order to carry it through the editorial pipeline. And that was quite interesting. It caught the attention of more and more groups like the ASC and others. And we started talking about, well, this kind of bulk data seems ideally suited to USD as opposed to a more text-based format like Open Timeline IO. And the working group on cameras was formed as sort of one of the first forays into breaking off a particularly nerdy subcomponent of a topic that was of interest to a very keen group, but not necessarily of broader interest. And that snowballed, and that effort continues more under the aegis of the ASC and the VAS at this point. We'll hear some more about like the current process in terms of like USD and schema representations per se in a few minutes. And I just think that's like a great example of like how that evolution has gone. Most recently, we've had a surprising and exciting influx of game developers. And when we had a topic recently, which was a presentation on the use of USD in a game production pipeline, and the membership in the forum like doubled, and we got yet another working group with a very specialized domain and an active community. Next slide, please. So there's been a lot of, I'm just highlighting, there's been a lot of like really synergistic development. And a really interesting topic that has been going on is like USD on the web. And there's been a number of experiments over the last couple of years as people attacked the problem of using Emscripten to convert the USD code compiled to WASM for execution on the web. And there were efforts, for example, there's a series of Jupyter notebooks that let you run USD programs on the web through a browser via like the Jupyter notebooks systems. And a lot of people have tried different things to deal with, for example, how does TDD interoperate with WSM in a web browser and so on. And that conversation, I feel, came together in the USD for the web working group, and various solutions were shared. And ultimately, Autodesk published a pretty amazing body of work on their GitHub repo, which is a fully functional USD that runs on the web. And there's even a 3JS Hydra delegate that they produced, and people have started making tools on the web around that delegate, around that Emscripten cross-compilation. And it's just, I would say that's like a really great example of the synergy that the community brings. Next slide, please. So there's a number of venues for collaboration that have developed around this effort. And our wiki is growing, and I'm going to show you just a little taste of that in a second. There's a number of working group GitHub repositories, and I'll leave it to the subgroup leaders to tell you a little bit about what's going on in those repositories. And every working group has got a Slack channel, and I invite you all to check those out and come and participate. And I'd also like to call out that the USD interest mailing list is is a very complementary forum for the kinds of discussions that are going on in this working group. And the Slack channel is a great place to have real-time conversations with fast response on like short topics. The USD interest mailing list is a great place to have an in-depth discussion, and with possibly canonical code examples and solutions that you can search for particular answers in the future for the long term. Next slide, please. So this is a peek at the sort of content that's on the wiki, and please visit and check it out. And the old USD resources GitHub that was maintained for many years migrated to the wiki. So there's a large collection of links and third-party integrations, various build scripts, all kinds of stuff is here. There's a place where we summarize all of our meetings. There's presentations that we've previously recorded and shared. You can find the working documents that the different groups have developed in their efforts. And just on the right side, there's a peek at a community page that you all are putting together, where USD activities at SIGGRAPH are slowly filling in. So please check that out. And if you know of anything going on, feel free to edit the page, because that's what wikis are for. Next slide, please. So there are a whole bunch of white papers and schema proposals and all kinds of other documents on that wiki that the community has been working on. And once again, I'll leave it to the subgroup leaders to talk about the specific efforts, but it's a very, very lively forum. Next slide. And I guess with that, I'll hand it back to you, Alex.
Well, thank you. Maybe I'm back on audio.
Yes, we hear you.
Fantastic, cool. Thank you, Nick. So many of our meetings, we have volunteers from throughout the USD community present some of their work, some ideas or proposals. And so we managed to make many of them public as well on our wiki, so that everyone can check them out and benefit from them. So for example, we had Guido present his ideas for USD at Adobe. Chris showed guidelines for structuring USD assets, and Eric presented USD and Material X at Wayfair. So that's really amazing what we've seen here so far. And every presentation is appreciated by everyone and helps the community. So anyone who's interested in presenting in the future, please feel free to reach out to us. And so the broad range of topics we see here brings me to another topic, which is diversity. We've already heard that we have a really diverse set of industries participating in our groups. We have film, of course, but then we have games, we have the web, we have lens and camera manufacturers, we have education, we have e-commerce, we have architecture. So there's tons and tons of people in industries interested in USD and coming to our group meetings. And within those industries, we also have people from a really diverse background from many different companies or individuals joining us. And that's really cool, and it helps the community and shows that USD is really powerful, and it shows how universal it is. But our goal goes a bit further. We want to involve and inspire a new generation of artists, of engineers, of students, representing the whole rich diversity of M&E, and include them in our working group conversations. We'll show you at the end how you can join our groups. But if anyone knows anyone in their companies or someone else somewhere to help us with our diversity goals, that would be amazing to invite them and have everyone in our efforts.
If I could just jump in there for a second, Alex, on that previous slide. I just wanted to share like a kind of inspiring moment that we had recently along these lines, to just give an idea of the sort of involvement that we think would be great to bring to the conversation. And that's, we had, could you tell me the name of the group, of Kat's group, Alex?
So Cat and Marin, they were from Love Death Design, that is a small artist-founded studio.
Yes. So what they're doing is they have this big effort around collaborative community documentation of the impact of environmental discrimination in the Los Angeles area. So they have people using iPhones and high-end LiDAR scanners and all kinds of stuff, like just going around, recording their communities, adding them into like basically this virtual reality or augmented reality collage. And they're bringing tools to that community of, you know, kids and elders and all kinds of people just in the streets in LA of how to get like this data that you've collected on the fly into a pipeline. And in this case, it's deployed in the Unity engine, and they teach people how they use like these pipeline tools that are familiar to us in order to express like their own stories in their own communities. And they provide this venue and organization and workshops. And so they came to us with their presentation and explained what they're doing. And their ask for us was to teach them, and how can we use USD, because it seems like the way we need to go with this stuff. And in our community efforts as a democratizing technology to let, you know, kids and elders and anybody participate in this production that's like hitherto so technical and difficult perhaps to access. And so they've reached out and they gave us this fantastic presentation, and there's a conversation started. And when we look at this goal, it seems possibly abstract or maybe even unachievable, but it can be really real if you can find these groups with that interest and initiative. And so I think we're going to be hosting that on that presentation on our wiki soon. So I just wanted to share how excited I was that there's an actual concrete thing that we can hang on this goal already. Okay, end of interruption.
No, that was great. Yeah, we hope that the presentation is up in the next 2 or 3 weeks, so everyone can enjoy that them. And to make our group even more exciting, I'll hand it over to our 5 sub-working groups now, and let them present what they're doing, which include our groups for assets, for camera, games, Material X, and the web. And we start with Jeremy and our assets group.
Hey everybody, my name is Jeremy Cowles, and I'm the lead of the USD Assets Working Group. I'm sure everyone here knows 3D assets are super complicated, and if you are an early adopter of USD, you've probably also heard the struggles of folks trying to understand it as they dive in for the first time. There's a clear need for simple onboarding guidance and example assets. So this is the problem we've set out to solve. We want to help implementers of USD. That could be integration in a DCC tool, or asset design for a production pipeline, or someone just trying to understand how it works. We want to help the community by bolstering the U in universal scene description, by making it easier to understand USD and to integrate it correctly, and thus making the whole ecosystem more reliable. We've settled on 3 key strategies. 1, simple targeted test assets. 2, written guidance. And 3, examples of complete assets representative of real-world complexity. Our test assets have 2 flavors. Either they're focused on testing common test failures, such as the alpha blend test on the left, or they help to understand how the core USD schema works, like the Primbar interpolation sample on the right. Every asset has a markdown file explaining the salient features along with reference renders, so the expected result is clear. While there is a great abundance of official USD documentation, one of the common criticisms is that the docs are difficult to understand, and it's unclear where to start sometimes. The guidelines we're producing are intended to be approachable and help users get started quickly. Finally, the full assets are similarly documented, but the USD files are hosted externally to keep the repository lightweight. These assets provide a more rigorous test for DCC tools and function as practical examples of real-world asset structure. While these are production examples, they're much smaller than, say, the Moana Island set or the ALAB set. So what we're doing is actually pretty simple by design. If you're familiar with USD and would like to contribute, we'd love to have your support. If you're working on a USD schema specification, please consider sending us an example asset in the form of a PR to the repository listed on the screen here. And finally, I'd like to extend an invitation to artists, even if you're not familiar with USD. If you can lend a hand to help make high quality test assets, your contribution would be incredibly helpful. We meet monthly and the next meeting is August 19th. Okay, that's it for me. And now I'll hand it off to the USD camera working group. Thanks.
Hi. Thank you, Jeremy, and welcome to the USD Camera Working Group. The USD Camera Working Group provides a platform of conversation and development around the ability to assemble, motivate, and share a CG camera, often using physical parameters and metadata from practical camera and lenses. The primary challenge is in leveraging practical camera and lens information in an artificial computer-generated construct. This holds true in virtual production, visual effects, and even some forms of animation. Compounding the challenge is a blend of various camera and lens metadata standards. There is also a divergence of coherent and reliable methods to pass on this metadata. As well, a legacy of third-party and proprietary solutions persist within studios to address the prior issues. Our goal is to associate lab and on-set measurements, camera and lens metadata with USD-based representations, leveraging USD's capabilities around schemas, shading, referencing, and variance. If we consider the recorded settings and actions of the camera and lens as the context of a performance, then USD makes for the perfect solution platform, since it is designed to represent performances. This is a multi-homed effort with participants from studios, camera and lens manufacturers, and major streaming platforms. Please join us in this journey of challenge and discovery towards a common camera workflow. Thank you from the USD Camera Working Group. And now, over to our colleagues in the USD Games Working Group.
Hi, my name is François Devic, and this is TJ Trentley, and we are the colleagues of the USD and Video Game Group. I've been working as a tools programmer in the video game industry for the past 15 years, mainly focusing on the creation asset pipeline. TJ?
Hi, I'm TJ, and I've been in the game industry for about 10 years, and I'm excited to share with you some information today about the working group. So, want to know what it takes to get USD format into game workflows? Well, so do we. As a newer USD working group, our goal is to explore how we can extend the USD format into games and improve upon it. Everything from source content and asset construction to how it is imported and manipulated within game engines.
I've been a lot of discussions so far around USD in games, and because of them, some common themes have already surfaced. These include game asset definition in USD and how it coincides with the USD asset group, common DCC tool workflow, and how we can improve them for game development needs, game engine integration, both at runtime and in the editor. These are the three common topics we see, but there are many more discussions being had daily.
So how are we going to do this? We aim to explore how a game asset in USD should be constructed, and also all the accompanying schemas used to translate game-specific data between applications. Some examples of this that already exist are the USD physics schema and the work being done with Material X and Standard Surface. Ultimately, we want to provide guidelines on how to translate game data into USD concepts.
Heading us with this, are many DCC tools commonly used in game development that have a USD integration in some form. We look to help bolster and improve this workflow where needed in software such as Maya, Blender, Houdini, ZBrush, and many more. These are two examples. The one on the left, this is the Houdini implementation with Solaris, and the one on the right is the USD layer editor, which was developed for Maya. Finally, we want to define and improve how USD assets are incorporated into game engines such as Unity and Unreal, looking at what is already offered and how we can extend it to fit better with our asset definition and data.
Ultimately, we aim to create better bidirectional workflows for content in USD. With technology coming closer and closer every year between game and films, we see USD as a new major format to the space. We want to encourage anyone interested in this space to join and contribute, even if you're not in the games industry, as visual development is also a huge part of this. Thank you for listening, and we hope to see you soon in chat. Let's pass the ball over to Material X subgroup next.
Hello, I'm Ashwin, and together with Orn, we host the USD Material X working group. Material X is an open standard for representing materials. It is also the industry standard for transfer of materials between applications and renderers. It is an official ASWF project with its own regular technical meetings to review important Material X related topics. Please check out the Material X Slack channel for details. Now, USD supports Material X using the USD Material X plugin, and the recent updates to enable Material X in Hydra has brought Material X closer to the USD ecosystem. Therefore, the purpose of this working group is to provide guidance to ensure that the material consistency and performance remain uncompromised as Material X flows through USD and Hydra. Some of our objectives are to clarify how shared features between USD and Material X work together. We would like to align on feature parity for lossless interop of materials from Material X to USD and Hydra. We would like to strive for standardization, but empower diverse material workflows in USD and Hydra. And in general, guide the community to promote Material X as a material description in USD via best practices and shared examples. From our initial meetings, the working group identified a few areas that were of shared interest. We used online collaboration tools such as Mural to prioritize and organize ideas. Once we have some alignment, these ideas may transform into proposals, white papers, or PRs that get merged into USD. Materials are a key ingredient in every pipeline from film, games, art, and design. We are constantly seeking participants with various industry backgrounds and welcome you to join us in future meetings. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Phil Savitsky, and with Roman Zulak, we are representing the USD Web Visualization Working Group. So we know USD is a versatile and modern framework, which lends itself to a wide range of use cases, like the ones you just saw highlighted in previous working groups. These rich capabilities can unfortunately be daunting for the uninitiated or make the barrier to entry a bit high for communities not generally familiar with 3D content. This is understandable given USD's history, but can also make the consumption and distribution of content more challenging for the general public. For this reason, the USD Web Visualization Working Group has set a few goals and strategies to make it easier to author, share, and consume USD. We'll present illustrations of these goals in just a moment, but at a high level, they are first to promote USD's flexibility for interchange of 3D content and information. And to support this goal, the second key strategy is to democratize access to content so the richness of USD can be expressed without end users having to be preoccupied with installing complex software on their devices. And this is especially true in a growing mobile and interconnected world. To this point, we also acknowledge the work of existing innovations and frameworks, especially in the web platform. By engaging with established open source leaders in this space, our aspiration is to create win-win scenarios where we can all benefit from each other's contribution. And one example of facilitating access to learning material for USD is the publication of interactive self-paced lessons available on the web thanks to NVIDIA. Using Jupyter Notebooks, participants are given the opportunity to interact with USD content from their browser after only brief introductions to key USD concepts. This has been a great tool to engage with the data science community as well as the education world, who are already familiar with Jupyter Notebooks or Python scripting and can get started using USD in a matter of minutes. Building further on this notion of accessibility, we've also been privileged to see contributions from Autodesk about open sourcing ports of USD and Hydra to WebAssembly and FreeJS. In this example, you see the famous kitchen scene from Pixar running in a browser thanks to a FreeJS render delegate, which further facilitates access to USD content by building on the years of expertise from the 3D web community. We hope these brief demos were exciting and are hoping you will find some time to experience them by yourself. These samples were the fruit of the labor of many contributions across different industries, but we are far from done. Other steps forward include additional contributions from Autodesk with the intent of supporting Storm in the browser and leverage web GPU, as well as tooling and guidelines regarding better ways of sharing assets online through better transmission. If you're interested in this area, we'd like to invite you to join us and contribute to these initiatives. Thank you, and we hope to see you soon.
I quickly want to take a second now to thank our working group leads for putting together these videos and also for all the great work in their working groups. And so, how can you all participate and attend our working group meetings? The main USD working group meets every 2 weeks on Wednesdays, and the sub-working groups meet about every 4 weeks. So here's the schedule for the next couple of weeks. We did move around a couple of meetings now because of SIGGRAPH. So the next web meeting is next week, August 17. The assets group is on Friday, August 19. The main USD working group is canceled on the 17th to give everyone a bit of a break. The next meeting then is on August 31st, where we have a exciting presentation already scheduled. That is from the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and they are showing us a behind the scenes of their imaging department and USDZ experiences for cultural heritage. The camera, games, and Material X working groups, they meet the week after. So that is on August 22, 3, and 25. With that, also a quick reminder, our Slack channels, Working Group USD is the main one. And then we have a Slack channel for each of our subgroup assets, camera, games, Material X, and the web. And that brings us pretty much to the end of our presentation and into the Q&A. Again, everyone is welcome to join our working groups and meetings and participate in the Slack channels. So please please join us and make use of it all together. Thank you.
So we have a few minutes for Q&A. Bueller? Are there any questions on the Zoom? Alex, do y'all see any questions on the Zoom?
I don't see any questions. I assume everyone is super happy and wants to join our meeting now.
Okay, great. Well, then we will wrap up this. Next up.